He hated her. At least that was what he told himself every morning when he woke up and saw her standing on the balcony outside his study, sunlight sliding across her hair like it had chosen her as its favorite resting place. He hated the way she held her chin high, as if the world had never dared to break her. He hated that she spoke to him as if she wasn't afraid. He hated that she wasn't afraid. God helped him. He hated the way his body betrayed him every single time she walked into a room. Jian Chengok did not lose control. He built empires out of control, negotiations, power, silence, fear. He was a man who made others kneel with a look, and yet one look from her could make his pulse misbehave. Her name was Wine, and she was his wife, not by love, not by choice, but by arrangement. The alliance between the Mal and Jones had been strategic power solidifying power, money strengthening money, territory secured by vows neither of them had banded. Their wedding had been extravagant, ruthless in its perfection, gold, diamonds, cameras flashing, smiles carved into their faces like porcelain masks. But behind those smiles had been something else. He had resented her from the beginning. Because she didn't look broken, most women who would arrange to marry him, if they had to, would have been trampled, whispered, tried to please. Wine had simply met his eyes at the altar and said quietly, "This will not control me." He had leaned closer, voice low enough that only she could hear. "Everything in my life bends." She hadn't blinked. "Then you will have to learn something new." That had been the beginning. They lived in the same mansion but moved like opposite forces. Separate rooms, separate schedules, separate lives, except when society required them to perform. At gala, she would stand beside him in a silk gown that simmered like liquid flame, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Cameras loved them. They looked devastating together. At every time her fingers touched him, something ugly and electric sparked under his skin. He despised how easily he imagined sliding those fingers away from the public gaze and pressing them somewhere more private. He despised that he thought made his jaw tighten. He despised that his body reacted before his mind could shove it down, because he hated her, didn't he? The first crack in his control came on a storm-heavy evening. The power had flickered across the street, thunder shaking the windows. Chenguk was in his study reviewing shipments reports, irritation already simmering. Wine entered without knocking. No one entered without knocking. He looked up sharply. She stood there, rain clinging to her hair and shoulders, having just come in the courtyard garden. The thin cotton of her nightdress clung to her in ways that made his thoughts tumble. "Your men are harassing the gardeners again," she said calmly. "My men do what they are told." "And who told them to intimidate someone over a broke hedge?" He leaned back in his chair. "You think I involve myself in hedges?" "I think," she replied evilly, "that fear is your favorite language." He stood slowly. He wasn't used to being challenged in his own house. She didn't move as he approached, didn't step back, didn't flinch. He stopped inches away. "You walk into my office," he said quietly, shocked and defiant. "Are you trying to provoke me?" Her eyes flicked down to his mouth for a fraction of a second. It was subtle, but he saw it. And that tiny movement hit him harder than any insult. "Maybe," she said softly. The air shifted. Something dangerous coiled between them. He could have dismissed her, turned away, reasserted distance. Instead, his hand moved before he consciously decided to. His fingers brushed her wrist, just barely. Her pulse jumped beneath his touch, so did his. He tightened his grip slightly, not enough to hurt, enough to feel. "You enjoy testing limits," he murmured, "and you enjoy pretending you don't have any." Her breath had changed, so had his. He could smell rain on her skin, rose, warmth. He hated how much he noticed. He hated how much he wanted to slide. his hands from her wrist upon to her arm, to her shoulder, to her throat. He imagined backing her against the desk, not gently, not tenderly, but with the kind of hunger that comes from too much restraint. The thought hit him so hard it felt physical. His grip loosened abruptly. He stepped back as if she had borne him. She saw it, the flicker of something in his eyes. Not anger, not entirely. Scared? She asked quietly. The words struck. He didn't answer because the truth was worse than fear. He wasn't scared of her, but he was scared of what he wanted to do with her. That night he didn't sleep. He lay in his separate bedroom, staring at the ceiling, replaying the way her pulse had felt beneath his thumb, the way her breath had hedged, the way she hadn't pulled away. She told himself it was dominance, control, a need to win, but his body knew better. This wasn't about power, this was about wanting. Wanting her mouth under his, wanting her nails digging into his shoulders, wanting her voice to break, and that infuriated him because he didn't want to want her. She was defiant, she was complication, she was the one person in his world who didn't bend, and something twisted inside him at the idea of making her bend, not in fear, in surrender. The thought was intoxicating and it made him hate her more. The next morning at breakfast, she looked perfectly composed, as if nothing had happened, as if the air between them had nearly ignited. She sipped her tea. He rewatched her over the rim of his coffee cup. "You will attend the Rio's dinner tonight," he said. It wasn't a request. She set her cup down. Yes, no argument. No tension, just calm. The calmness irritated him more than a fight would have. At the Rio's dinner, she wore deep red. He realized too late that red was a mistake. For him, she moved through the room gracefully, speaking to investors, politicians, wives. Men looked at her. He noticed too much. One of the Rio's sons leaned in too close while laughing at something she said. Jungkook felt it then, sharp and sudden. Jealousy, ugly, territorial, immediate. He crossed the room before he had time to analyze it. His hand slid to her waist, possessive, firm. The Rio's son stepped back instantly. Jungkook didn't look at him. He looked at her. Her eyes flickered with surprise, then something else, understanding. "You're smiling," she whispered under her breath. "For appearances. You're holding me too tightly for appearances." His fingers tightened another fraction. "You seem very comfortable." "With conversation?" "With him." She tilted her head slightly. "Do you care?" He leaned closer so his lips were near her ear. "Yes," he said. The word was out before he filtered it. She still, not because of the answer, because of how he said it. Low, rough, almost unwilling. The rest of the evening was a blur. He barely heard conversations. All he could feel was the shape of her waist under his palm. All he could think was about how easily he could pull her away from his couch, take her home, press her against a wall, erase the calm expression, make her react, make her unravel. The desire wasn't gentle, it wasn't romantic, it was intense and raw, and threaded through with resentment, because he still hated her. He hated that she made him feel, hated that she saw through him, hated that she wasn't intimidated, and yet. When they returned home that night, tension thick and unspoken, she paused at the bottom of the staircase. "Why do you look at me like that?" she asked. He didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Like what?" "Like you are at war with yourself." Silence stretched. Then he stepped closer. "You want honesty?" "Yes." He hesitated only for a second. "I can't stand you," he said. Her jaw tightened slightly, but he continued, voice dropping. "I can't stop thinking about touching you." The words hung heavy between them. Her breath faltered, her chest rose and fell slowly. "I don't know which I hate more," he added quietly. "You or the fact that I want you." The staircase light flickered faintly. Neither of them moved. "You don't want me?" she said finally. He stepped into her space close enough that she had to tilt her head back slightly. "I do." His hand hovered near her waist again, not touching, just there. A silent question, a silent threat, a silent promise. "And that," he murmured, "is the problem." The silence after his confession did not shatter, it thickened. Wine didn't step back, he didn't gasp, didn't slap him. She simply stood there, chin tilted slightly upward, her breath brushing against his collarbone because he was standing too close. Too close for hate, too close for indifference. You can't stare me, she repeated softly. No, and you can't stop thinking about touching me. Her jaw tightened. No. The honesty between them was almost violent. Her fingers lifted slowly, hesitatingly, and rested flat against his chest, not pushing him away, just there. He felt the warmth of her palm through the shirt. His heartbeat betrayed him instantly, pounding harder beneath her touch. You're shaking, she whispered. He wasn't, but something inside him was. His hand moved before he could reconsider it, wrapped around her waist again. This time not abrupt, not startled, firm, deliberate, careful, he warned. Why? Because I don't know what I will do. Her pulse fluttered under his thumb. You think I don't? She asked quietly. That made him pause. For months he had assumed he was the only one fighting something inside his mind which is dangerous. But there it was in her eyes, not fear, not reluctance. Heat. He saw out. You shouldn't look at me like that. Like what? Like you want me to prove it. The staircase felt smaller, the house felt smaller, the air felt thinner. She stepped closer. It was barely an inch, but it erased a remaining space between them. If you hate me, she said, voice steady through her breathing lesson. Why does your body react like this every time I'm near? He exhaled sharply because she was right. His restraint was hanging by threads. I don't want to warn you, he said, almost to his teeth. Why? Because warning you means losing control. And you can't handle that? His eyes darkened. I don't lose. Maybe that's a problem. That did it. His hand slid from her wrist to her waist in one swift motion, pulling her flesh against him, her breath caught, so did his. The contact was undeniable now, solid, intentional. Her hands instinctively grabbed his shirt, not to push him away but to steady herself. Still calm, he murmured near her mouth. No, she admitted. That answer snapped something. His lips turning crashed to hers. He didn't devour her. He hovered, so close to the warmth of her mouth, brushes, testing, waiting, a vast fear raging behind his eyes. If I start, he said quietly, I won't stop because I'm angry. She swallowed. Maybe I don't want you to stop. That was the last line of defense. His mouth claimed hers, not gentle, not soft. It was frustration and tension and months of restraint colliding at once. She gasped against him, and that sound sent heat straight through him. He deepened the kiss, hand tightening at her waist, pulling her closer as if proximity alone could silence the chaos inside him. She responded. That was what shook him. She didn't remain stiff, she didn't hesitate. Her fingers slid upward into his hair, touching slightly, and the sensation shot through him like lightning. He broke the kiss suddenly, breathing hard, perfect almost touching. You drive me insane, he said. I know. You argue with me. Yes, you challenge me. Yes, and yet, he added darkly, you kiss me like that. Her lips curved faintly. You kissed me like you wanted me for months. He didn't deny it. Instead, he kissed her again. This time slower, deeper, less about anger, more about hunger. The kind that had been building quietly under layers of resentment. His hand traced up to her back, feeling the curve of her spine, memorizing the shape of her. Every reaction she gave him, every breath, every small sound felt like pure. He didn't understand how he could despise her stubbornness and crave her surrender at the same time. He didn't understand why wanting her felt like admitting defeat. But he couldn't stop. He backed her gently toward the wall at the base of the staircase. Not aggressive, not rough, but undeniably commanding. Her back met the cool surface, his body pressed against hers. Her hands slid down his chest slowly. You're still fighting yourself, she whispered between kisses. Yes, why? Because I don't trust this. Trust what? This need. She searched his face. Needing someone doesn't make you weak. It does in my world. I'm not your world. That hit harder than it should have. For a moment, he just looked at her, really looked at her. At the way her hair had loosened, at the flush on her cheeks, at the vulnerability hidden beneath her strength. You are my wife, he said quietly. That doesn't mean you see me. His grip softened. The tension shifted, not gone but transformed. Less rage, more revelation. His thumb brushed gently along her jawline, a touch that surprised both of them. I see you, he said. Almost reluctant, her eyes flickered with something fragile. Then stop pretending this is just hate. He exhaled slowly. He had built this identity on control, on emotional distance, on never letting anyone close enough to destabilize him. But here he was, kissing the woman he claimed to despise, wanting her not because she was available, but because she was her. You frustrate me, he admitted. You intimidate me. That made her blink. Intimidate? You don't bend, and you don't want me to? His answer came without hesitation. No, that truth startled them both. He didn't want her broken. He didn't want her submissive. He wanted her strong. He wanted her fire. He wanted her exactly as she was, and that terrified him more than hate had ever would. Her fingers slid to his collar, tugging him down slightly. So, what are you going to do about it? He studied her face, the defiance, the challenge, the trust. Slowly, deliberately, he leaned again. But this time the kiss wasn't fueled by anger, it was slower, intentional, exploratory. His hands rested at her waist without gripping, without forcing, with just holding, as if she could walk away at any second and he would let her. The shift in him was subtle but real. He wasn't trying to conquer her. He was choosing her. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. This doesn't erase everything, he said quietly. I know, we still clash. Yes, I still get furious. She smiled faintly. So do I. Silence lingered, heavy but no longer hostile. Come to my room tonight, he said finally. It wasn't an order, it was dominance. It was invitation, her heartbeat quickened beneath his hand. Why? He met her gaze steadily. Because I don't want this to be about hate anymore. Her fingers tightened slightly in his shirt. And what do you want it to be about? He hesitated, then answered honestly, as the world felt foreign on his tongue, but right. She searched his expression for any sign of mockery. There was none, only raw sincerity. Slowly she nodded. Then, don't push me away tomorrow, she said. I don't. Don't pretend this was a mistake. It wasn't. Don't use anger as an excuse to distance yourself. His jaw tightened slightly, but not in frustration, in determination. I won't, he repeated, and for the first time since their arranged marriage, he meant it. He stepped back, giving her space, not because he wanted distance, but because he was choosing restraint, not out of fear, but respect. She watched him as he walked up the staircase alone. For once, the tension between them wasn't suffocating, it was anticipatory. Not hate, not dominance, something far more dangerous. Desire without denial. And then, as the night deepened around the mansion, one truth became impossible to ignore. He never truly hated her, he hated how deeply he felt for her. Wine stood at the bottom of the staircase long after he disappeared upstairs. Her heart hadn't slowed, her lips still tinkled. Her mind was louder than the thunder that had once shaken the house. Come to my room tonight. Not a command, not an order, an invitation. That alone unsettled her more than the kiss had, because John Django did not invite, he summoned, he controlled, he dictated, but tonight something had shifted, and she felt it. Upstairs, Django closed the door to his room and leaned back against it. He exhaled sharply, dragging a hand through his shirt. He had crossed a line, not physically, not fully, but emotionally. He had admitted wanting her. He had admitted that his anger wasn't just anger, and now there was no retreating into indifference. He walked toward the window, staring out at the city lights beyond the estate walls. He had built his life on calculated distance, even business rivals know better than to assume they understood him. And yet she had seen him through in months, seen the way his jaw tightened when he was jealous. seen the way his silence wasn't coldness but restraint, seen the way his anger sometimes masked fear. He hated that she understood him. He hated that he liked it. His phone buzzed from the bedside table. He ignored it. Nothing felt more urgent than the fact that she was downstairs deciding whether to come to him. He didn't want her to come because she felt obligated. He didn't want her to come because they were married. He wanted to come because she wanted him. That realization unsettled him. When had this stopped being about dominance? When had it started being about choice? Mind changed slowly in her room, not into anything dramatic, not into anything designed for seduction, not just something soft, simple. Her reflection in the mirror showed flushed cheeks and thoughtful eyes. She wasn't naive. She knew the tension between them had always been physical. It had simmered beneath arguments and sharp glances. But tonight felt different. Tonight wasn't about proving something, it wasn't about winning. It was about acknowledging what had always been there. She stepped in the hallway, the house was quiet, the marble floors cool under her feet. Every step toward his room felt heavier, not with fear but anticipation. She stopped outside his door, her hand hovered for a second, then she knocked. A single steady knock inside his body reacted instantly. He crossed the room and opened the door without hesitation, and there she was. No dramatic expression, not coyness, just honesty in her eyes. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. He stepped aside. Yes. The air inside his room felt different from downstairs, more private, less guarded. He closed the doors gently behind her. No sudden movements, no grabbing, no claiming, just space. They stood facing each other, neither sure who should move first. "You came," he said quietly. "You asked, and you don't usually do what I asked." A faint smile touched her lips. "Maybe I wanted to." That answer did something to him, not explosive, not overwhelming, but grounding. He stepped closer, slower this time, not cornering her, not overwhelming her. Just closing the space carefully. "I don't want this to be another battlefield," he said. "It doesn't have to be." He studied her face, searching for doubt. There was none, only steady warmth. His hand lifted, brushing a loose strand of hair away from her cheek. The touch was gentle, almost hesitant. He leaned into it slightly. The small movement shattered the piece of distance between them. He bent down and kissed her again. It wasn't urgent, it wasn't fueled by frustration, it was deliberate. Soft at first, testing, she responded immediately, her hands resting on his shoulders, fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt. The kiss deepened naturally, no rush, no force, just heat building slowly. His hands slid to her waist again, but this time he paused, waiting. She understood. Her hands moved from his shoulders to his collars, pulling him closer. That was all the permission he needed. The tension between them shifted from sharp to molten. He walked her backward a few steps, not in dominance but in rhythm, until the back of her knees brushed the edge of the bed. He broke the kiss, breathing heavier now. "We can't stop," he said. She shook her head. "I don't want to." His jaw tightened, not from restraint but emotion. "You have no idea how long I have tried to ignore this." "Why?" "Because wanting you felt like losing to me, as I said." She reached up and cupped his face. "Maybe it's not losing." Then what said? Trust. That word hit harder than anything else tonight. Trust required vulnerability. Vulnerability required courage. He wasn't afraid of enemies. He wasn't afraid of guns, but he had always been wary of needing someone, and yet here he was, choosing her. He kissed her again, slower, deeper, his hands more carefully, not grabbing, not demanding, exploring, learning, memorizing. She responded with equal intensity, her fingers sliding into his hair again and pulling him closer when he slowed. Their breathing synchronized, the air thickened. But there was no rush towards recklessness. Every movement felt intentional, every touch was answer. He lowered his forehead to against hers again, eyes searching hers in the dim light. "Tell me if you want me to stop." "I won't." "Tell me anyway." A faint smile. "I will." The rest unfolded not as clash but as a surrender. Not submission, not domination, mutual surrender. clothes discarded without urgency, kisses traded like confessions, hands tracing skin with a mist of curiosity and restraint. There was heat, yes, but there was also something softer beneath it. Relief. Relief at no longer pretending, relief at no longer masking desire as hostility. When he finally pulled her closer, holding her firmly against him, it wasn't about conquering. It was about connection. She felt it, he felt it, and in that closeness, the hatred he had clung to for months dissolved into something he had refused to name. He buried his face against her shoulder briefly, breathing her in. "You undo me," he murmured. She tightened her arms around him. "Good." He let out a quiet, almost disbelieving laugh. For the first time since their marriage, there was no edge between them. No sarcasm, no defensiveness, just warmth. Afterward, they lay side by side in the dim room, silence settling uncomfortably instead of tensely. He stared at the ceiling. She traced absent patterns against his chest. "This doesn't mean we won't argue tomorrow," she said. "We will," he replied, "but not like before." "No." He turned his head slightly to look at her. "I don't hate you." "I know." He hesitated. "I think I was afraid." "Of what?" "That you would matter too much." She shifted closer. "Maybe I already do." He didn't argue because she did, and that realization didn't terrify him the way it once had. It grounded him. His arm tightened slightly around her, not possessive, protective. And as sleep slowly crept in, one undeniable truth settled between them. The hate had never been real. It had been resistance to vulnerability, to desire, to love forming where pride once stood. The morning after felt unfamiliar, not awkward, not regretful, just different. Wine walked before him. For a moment he didn't move. She simply listened to the steady rhythm of his breathing, to the quiet hum of the air conditioning, to the absence of tension that had once defined this room. John Jungkook had never slept deeply. He had always been alert, guarded, and controlled, even in rest. But now his arm was still wrapped around her waist, his grip loose but instinctive, as if sometime during the night he had pulled her closer unconsciously. That small detail did something to her chest. She carefully shifted, intending not to wake him. His hold tightened instantly. "Where are you going?" he murmured, voice rough with sleep. A small smile touched her lips. "I was just adjusting." He opened his eyes slowly. There was no coldness in them in this morning. No calculated distance, only awareness and something softer. "You're still here," he said quietly. "I told you I would be." He studied her face like he was searching for cracks. "You regret it?" "No." He exhaled a subtle release of tension he had realized he was holding. Neither of them said the word love. It hovered somewhere between them, not spoken but present. And then his phone burst on the bedside table, the real world interrupting. He glanced at the screen and his expression shifted not into anger but into the sharp focus of responsibility. "I had to take this." She nodded and slid out of the bed, grabbing her robe. He answered the call, voice instantly different, controlled, commanding. "Yes." A buzz. His jaw tightened slightly. "I will handle it." Another pause. "No mistake." He entered the call. She stood by the window now, watching him. "That tone," she said quietly, "that's a version of you the world sees. And you don't?" She shook her head. "I see the man who almost looks nervous when he thinks I might walk away." He didn't respond to that because she wasn't wrong. By afternoon, tension had returned, but not in between them. It came from outside. A rival business family had been circling one of his projects. Not directly hostile, but probing, watching, testing. Jungkook had enemies, that was new. But what was new was the realization that Vine was no longer separate from his vulnerabilities. She was part of them. And that unsettled him. That evening he found her in the garden. "You will stay inside for the next few days," he said. She turned slowly. "That wasn't a request, isn't it?" "No." She crossed her arms. "You don't get to decide that for me. It's about control." His patience thinned slightly. "It's about protection." Her expression softened just a fraction. "From what?" He hesitated. He had never explained the darker aspects of his world to her in detail. "From men who don't fight clean." "And you think hiding me solves that?" "I think limiting exposure does." She stepped closer. "You don't get to build walls around me because you finally admitted you care." That struck deeper than she intended. I'm not trying to cage you. Then don't. He looked away briefly, jaw-tied. She reached out and touched his arm. Jungkook. He met her eyes. If there is danger, we face it together, she said, not with you pushing me behind locked doors. His instinct was to argue, to assert control, but last night had changed something fundamental. She wasn't fragile, she was an accessory. She was his partner, and if treated her like that something to hide, he would undo everything they had just built. You don't understand how ruthless they can be, he said quietly, then explain it. That stopped him. No one ever asked him to explain. They obeyed or feared or followed. She wanted understanding, not dominance. So he told her not everything but enough about intimidation, tactics, about leverage, about the kind of threats that weren't always spoken loud. She listened without interrupting, without panic. When she finished, she didn't look afraid. She looked thoughtful. You worried they will use me against you? Yes. And that scares you, yes. The honesty didn't feel humiliating anymore, it felt necessary. She stepped closer. They can only use me if you treat me like a weakness. He frowned slightly. What does it mean? It means if I walk around like I'm shielded and hidden, they will know I matter the most. His gaze sharpened. And you don't? I do, but not like that. She shook his head. I won't be reckless. You don't reduce me to something fragile. He studied her face. There it was. Again, the fire he had once mistaken for defiance. It wasn't rebellion, it was strength, and he had fallen for it long before he admitted. You are not fragile, he said. Good. But you matter. I know. The tension eased slightly. He pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers. You have complicated my life. You have complicated mine too. He almost smiled. Do you regret marrying me? She considered the question carefully. I regret the reasons we married, she said, but not the man I am starting to know. The quiet admission settled deeply in his chest. He kissed her, not urgently, not hungrily, just gently, a promise, not a claim. 2 nights later, a text came. An anonymous message was delivered to the estate, not a threat, just a warning. We know what matters now. Jungkook read it twice. His expression hardened. Wine saw it immediately. They know, he said quietly. She didn't pretend to understand. She stepped closer instead. Then we don't give them fear. His instinct screamed to tighten security, to restrict movement, to take control. But instead he did something he would never have done months ago. He asked her opinion. What do you suggest? She met his gaze steadily. We host an event, he blinked. An event? Yes, invite everyone, allies, rivals, let them see I'm not hidden. That's risky. So is fear. He considered carefully, strategically. It wasn't foolish. Confidence was power. Visibility could send a message stronger than secrecy. You're sure? She nodded. And you stand beside me, not a friend. That subtle distinction mattered. He nodded slowly. Fine. The night of the event, the mansion burst with energy. Powerful families arrived. Politicians, investors, rivals. Jungkook stood at the entrance, wine at his side, not clinking, not overshadowing, equal. Whispers traveled quickly through the room. They were watching, observing, measuring. One rival patriarch approached, smiled thin. You seem confident tonight, the man remarked. Jungkook's hand rested lightly at the wine's back. I am. And your wife? Wine answered before Jungkook could. I don't frighten easily. The man studied her carefully, then nodded once. Interesting. Jungkook felt something shift in the room. Respect, not because he had hidden her, but because she stood unshaken. Later that night, when the last guest left, the tension finally released. He closed the doors behind him. The house felt quiet. He turned to her slowly. You were remarkable. You were too. He shook his head slightly. No, you were. She stepped closer. And you didn't try to shield me. I wanted to. I know. He cupped her face gently, but I didn't. Thank you. There was no dramatic declaration, no grand confession, just a steady understanding. He pulled her into his arms, holding her firmly, not out of possession, out of partnership. You are not my weakness, he said quietly. What am I? He met her gaze, my equal. That word meant more than love ever could in this world. And this time, when he kissed her, there was no bar beneath it, only certainty. Hate had been easier, cleaner, safer. If had given Jungkook something to push against, something to blame for the fire in his veins every time one entered a room. But now there was no shield left, no pride to hide behind, no convenient hostility to disguise what had always been there. Only truth, and truth demanded courage. Weeks passed after the event. The message had been received loud and clear. Wine was no leverage, he was strength. The probing from rivals slowed. The tension outside eased, but something else deepened inside the walls of the mansion. The arguments didn't disappear, they evolved. They still clashed over decisions, over timing, over methods, but the sharpness hadn't changed. It was no longer about ego, it was about understanding, and in the quiet moments, in passing touches, in shared glances across rooms, there was a current that hadn't existed before. Not just desire, not just attraction, something steadier, something grounding. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Jungkook found her in the library. She was curled into one of the armchairs, reading soft light framing her profile. He paused at the doorway. Months ago, that sight would have irritated him. Her calmness, her independence, her refusal to orbit around him. Now it did something else entirely. It pulled him in. You're staring, she said without looking up. I know. She turned a page. Why? He walked toward her slowly. Because I'm trying to understand something. She finally lifted her eyes to him. And what is it? He stopped in front of her chair. How I went from wanting to avoid you to not wanting to imagine his house without you in it. The honesty in his voice made her sit up straighter. That's a dangerous realization, she said softly. For a man like me, yes. He crouched slightly so they were eye level. I used to think wanting you was weakness, and now? Now I think pushing you away was. Silence wrapped around them, not tense, just heavy with meaning. She closed her book slowly and set it aside. What changed? You did. She frowned faintly. I didn't change. Yes, you did. He said, to stop fighting me like I was the enemy. I realized you weren't, he held her gaze. And I realized I didn't hate you. Her lips curved slightly. You figured out weeks ago. No, his voice dropped. I knew I wanted you weeks ago. That word wanted still carried hate, but this time it wasn't restless. It wasn't sharp, it was steady. And now? She asked quietly. He hesitated for the first time in his life. He looked unsure. Now I don't just want you, he admitted. I trust you. Her breath caught slightly. Trust. That meant more than passion ever could. He reached out, brushing his thumb along her cheek. I don't think I'd ever trusted anyone like this. You didn't have to, she said gently. I do now. She stood from the chair slowly, closing the small distance between them. And what does that mean for us? He exhaled. It means I stop pretending this is just physical. Her eyes searched his face carefully. And if it isn't, then it's bigger than I planned for. She smiled faintly. You don't like things bigger than your plans. No, but I like you. The simplicity of that statement landed harder than any dramatic declaration. Her hand rested against his chest again in the same place she had touched him that night on the staircase. Only this time there was no tremor beneath her palm. His heartbeat was steady, grounded. You don't hate me anymore, she said. No. You don't resent wanting me? No. And you don't see me as something that make you lose? He shook his head. You are make me stronger. Her eyes softened. That was it. That was the truth he had resisting from the beginning. She had never been his weakness. She had been his mirror. Reflecting the parts of him he tried to bury, vulnerability, longing, the need of connection. He leaned down and kissed her, not rash, not intense, just certain. Her hands slid around his waist, pulling him closer. The warmth between them felt familiar now, but layered with something deeper, security. He rested his forehead against hers. I thought hate would protect me, he said quietly, and what did it really do? It delayed the inevitable, and what was inevitable? He didn't hesitate this time, falling for you. The words hung between them raw and irreversible. She didn't tease him, didn't reflect. They simply reached up and kissed him again, soft, affirming. I have been waiting for you to say that, she whispered. You knew? I knew you didn't look at me like a man who hated me. He almost laughed. I tried, you failed. He smiled properly this time. I'm glad. Later that night, they sat together on the balcony outside his study, the same place where months ago he had convinced himself that wanting her was a flaw. The city light stretched endlessly below. He leaned against his shoulder, comfortable, unhurried. You know, she said softly, I used to think you hated me because I challenged you. I thought I did too. And now I think I needed someone who wouldn't be afraid of me. She tilted her head slightly. Are you that frightening? Yes, she considered that, then nodded once. Maybe to the world. He glanced at her. And to you? She smiled faintly. You are just a man who took too long to admit he cared. He didn't argue because she was right. He wrapped his arms around her shoulders, pulling him closer. Not possessive, protective, yes, but equal. I don't hate you, he said again, quieted this time. I know. I don't want you because I'm angry. I know. I want you because you're mine. She looked up at him carefully. He smirked slightly. Not ownership. Good. Choice? He corrected. You're mine because you chose to be. She nodded slowly. And you're mine for the same reason. The wind moved gently around her. For a man who had once equated love with vulnerability and vulnerability with weakness, the moment felt like something revolutionary. He had wanted her even when he claimed to hate her, but now he understood the difference. Back then it had been fire without clarity, but now it was fire with foundation, not reckless, just destructive, steady. He pressed a kiss to her temple. You know what I hate now? He said quietly. What? That I wasted months pretending. She laughed slowly. We have the rest of our lives. The future once would have felt like a trap, now it felt like possibility. He had built empires from power, but this partnership was something he hadn't planned, something he hadn't controlled, something he had fought and lost. But losing had never felt this right. He didn't hate her. He never truly had. He had hated the way she dismantled his walls, the way she forced him to feel, the way she made him want more than control. And in the end, he realized something simple. The opposite of hate is love, it's fear. And once the fear was gone, love had been waiting all along.